Joining us right here on set is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, member of the Senate Foreign Relations, Appropriations, and Banking Committees. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Great to be with you,
Your
Marie.
reaction to this Colorado ruling?
You know, after going through all of H.R. 1 and S1 in the last Congress and the histrionics of the Democrat Party about enfranchising voters, we have a ruling here that would disenfranchise half of Colorado. Alan Dershowitz did a great job in the previous hour of shooting holes in this legal argument. There's been no due process here at all. This is a blatant political decision. I think the American public is going to see right through it. I was with President Trump on Monday. Every week that passes, the public sees more and more the desperation of the Biden administration. The fact that they're losing in the polls leads to results like this, and they have literally no interest in the democratic process. You hear threat after threat about Donald Trump and the democratic process being under threat. The real threat is rulings just like this.
Well, the threats started as soon as he came down the elevator back in 2015. Yes. He's never been given a fair shot, from the Russia collusion story to fake impeachments to all the attacks from the mainstream media and detractors. What did he say to you about this when he was with you on Monday?
As long as he keeps fighting for the American people are going to support him. That's precisely the reason he's being attacked, because the establishment is deeply uncomfortable by a disruptor. He's an outsider. He's a businningsman. He's been successful in New York real estate.
The hate is stunning.
It is,
Senator. I mean, it's not just a competitor. Why are they so afraid of him? I mean, deeply.
Yeah, it's amazing how deeply they are afraid of him, because he represents transformational change.
Yeah.
I think they're very comfortable with the status quo and with the disproportionate power that they enjoy in Washington. He represents transformational change, and the American public see that and want this transformation.
Tiana, before you jump in, let's hear from the voters. Iowa voters reacted to Trump being kicked off of the ballot. Watch this.
No, that's not fair. That shouldn't happen. You should be able to vote for whoever you want to vote for. No, I don't think it's fair.
That's okay.
I think he should be able to run.
I'm very disappointed. I think it should be a people's choice that governs who's going to be, or determines who's going to govern our country. I don't think it should be decided by bureaucrats.
It's just absolute BS. I mean, that's constitutionally illegal. It's going to get turned over. Colorado can't just go on their merry way without validation and do that. It's just disregard of the whole Constitution to be able to think they can do that. People will still show up. In fact, it'll create more animosity. It'll help Trump because they're doing this.
What about that last point?
Right.
Do you think this goes to the Supreme Court? Do you think the Supreme Court rules on this
Yes,
quickly?
I think it's got to go to the Supreme Court. It'll happen quickly. And what the last commentator said, this does show the complete animosity of the Democrat Party. They are willing to do anything, stop at nothing. And I think the Supreme Court is going to have to put its foot down. Interestingly, the Democrats have been laying the predicate to contaminate the Supreme Court, to try to somehow dissuade the American public from trusting the Supreme Court, but they have to do their job.
And yet, Tiana, they call Trump a dictator.
Yeah, this is all about their fulmination about protecting democracy, right? And their solution to it is use, for the first time since, or for the second time since Reconstruction, between Reconstruction and 2021, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was used once, and it was overturned after it was used. It was used against a socialist who opposed involvement in World War I, blatant misuse of the Espionage Act, overturned. Under these grounds, Trump hasn't even been convicted, let alone criminally charged of insurrection, right? That's a very specific definition. But here's my question, less from the legal aspect of it, which seems obviously so comically false, but politically, what do they expect will happen? We've had 4 sweeping rounds of civil and criminal charges against Donald Trump, and each time one has been levied at him, he has only shot up in the polls. He's gotten a new round of, tens of millions of dollars of donations. Mm-hmm. So what do they expect is going to happen with this? You can't just lawsuit, criminally charge, and disenfranchise your way out of Trump. The only way you could do it is just as Chris Christie and Nikki Haley pointed, beat him at the ballot box, fair and square.
If you think he wants to lose. Answer. I'll beat him fair and square. Go ahead, Senator.
Well, I think from Joe Biden's perspective, he's realizing day after day he can't do that. On the policies, policy after policy, he falls far behind Trump. When a simple question is asked, am I better off today than I was 4 or 5 years ago? The answer is overwhelmingly no. Joe Biden's policies failed. If you look at what's happened to our border, if you look at the fentanyl coming into our country, if you look at crime in the cities, if you look at the disgraceful behavior that we've had, whether it's Afghanistan, the war that's now now broken in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East. Joe Biden is losing control. The American public can see it. They don't have an argument from a policy standpoint. The only thing I think they see is a path to get to the White House again is to destroy their opposition.
And the other thing is that they ignore all of this potential criminality in plain sight. I mean, you've got the House opening an impeachment inquiry of President Biden last week, going formal on this. Some Republican senators already dismissed the impeachment watch. Watch this.
I haven't really been paying that much attention to it. They have to prove that President Biden somehow financially benefited from the business enterprises of Hunter Biden. We'll see.
Have they done it yet, in your mind?
If there were a smoking gun, I think we'd be talking about it. I'm not worried about impeaching the president right now.
Mitt Romney, Senator Romney, also said he saw no evidence at all, despite the fact that the House Oversight Committee has released all of these emails and bank records indicating Joe Biden accepted $240,000 in checks from Hunter Biden, and the family overall has accepted millions of dollars from adversaries like China.
Well, I wonder why the DOJ has then decided it was important to cover up what's happened, because in April of last year, Merrick Garland was testifying to me on the record when I asked him if he was taking any effort to involve himself in the investigation, and he said absolutely not. Whistleblowers came forward after that and said what Merrick Garland said was not true. In fact, the DOJ had put its finger on the scale in many ways, trying to cover up this investigation, trying to divert it. What you've seen is them allow the statute of limitations to run out on more serious charges. The evidence is mounting. I think everybody in America knows who the big guy is, too.
Yeah.
So as the evidence comes forward, this is looking very, very bad for Joe Biden. Again, a lot of deflection going on here.
Yeah.
But we have got a serious problem.
But imagine what Dan Patrick said earlier. I saw a soundbite of Dan Patrick, Deputy Governor of Texas, and he said, well, maybe we should take Joe Biden's name off of the ballot in Texas. Maybe because of all of the dereliction of duty that we're seeing from this guy by allowing 8 to 10 million illegals come into the country. That's what things like going against the Constitution spark. Ideas from other states, Brian.
Well, yeah, talk about impeachable offenses. The dereliction of duty at the border, to me, is on the top of that list. I get a little dispirited, though, when I see our elected officials saying they don't have any curiosity in what's going on.
Oh, that's what Lindsey Graham just
family.
said. What is Lindsey Graham thinking?
I think one of your main things should be curiosity about whether our sitting president is compromised by our greatest adversaries. At least show the American people a little curiosity, Senator. What's going on there?
Was he just speaking to his audience because he was on NBC?
But we don't pay him to speak to that audience or this audience. We pay him to do his job, and I think the president potentially being compromised is part of his job.
And you raise a very serious point, because the source of the money is not just somebody next door. It's China.
Right.
It's Russia. It's Ukraine.
Yes.
That's Kazakhstan.
Yeah. And then when they had the initial $5 million into CEFC, the Chinese energy company, the $5 million came from China. They had the nerve, the Biden said it was a loan. A loan from China? Who borrows $5 million?
You can't get a loan anywhere else. You got to go to China for $5 million.
And where's the documentation on the loan?
Yeah, and it's almost laughable. It's so ridiculous. And if anybody else said it without the protection of the DOJ and the media, they would not get away with it.
Real quick before you go, you're on Banking Committee and Financial Services. Do you see an impact from all of these ships getting rerouted in the Red Sea? Is that going to be an economic impact?
Maria, I'm deeply concerned about this, and I've participated in the insurance and reinsurance markets in my private sector career. I'm deeply concerned about the impact of ensuring maritime cargo around the world. We cannot lose control of the Red Sea. And what we've seen is Biden comes in, lifts the Houthis from the terrorist watch list, by April of 2021, the Houthis have already fired on the Saudis.
Right.
This is
another mind-boggling decision. Why take off the terrorist designation for the Houthis?
Well, the only thing I can explain is that they're trying to appease Iran. Again, the Biden administration comes in, does everything they can to get back into the JCPOA, the failed Iran deal. This is all about appeasing Iran. Iran would not have the ability to do this right now were we enforcing the sanctions that were imposed on Iran. Under the maximum pressure campaign that President Trump put in place, we had taken Iran's capital accounts down to below $8 billion. The Houthis, the Hezbollah, were widely reported as being broke.
Right. Same approach to communist China as well from this president. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much.
Wonderful to be with you all.
And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Bill Hagerty this morning.